So here's the thing about The Boys Season 5. It has fucking rocked. I think it is likely the strongest set of opening episodes of any season thus far, as it has really fired on every possible cylinder for the entirety of its runtime, not missing a single beat or taking a single misstep, in my opinion, of course. Major spoilers in the following video, obviously, for the first 4 episodes of the season, but you were warned. First and foremost, this season is doing an excellent job continuing the arcs of all of its characters. Seriously, I am enjoying everyone's story, but I am going to talk specifically about a few who are my personal favorites. First up is Butcher. I'm glad to see that they didn't shy away from the place that he landed at the end of season 4. After that whole really intricate dilemma involving the separate sides of himself, one of them represented by Kessler, Butcher resolved to lean into his more dark impulses, the ones that include revenge and vengeance rather than empathy, compassion, protecting Ryan. In fact, if he didn't, the V'd-up tumor in his brain would likely kill him. Literally going against his nature was driving him to an early grave. So this season, we have the most butcheriest butcher who's ever butchered. And while that isn't the best thing for his well-being or, you know, the world, it is really fun to see him like this, back in his, like, roots. So determined, so sure of himself, and clearly having a great fucking time being this dark. I mean, he says himself he loves this version of him. I mean, one of the first things that we see him do is actively go back and kill his own father. Such a downright vicious fucking scene that highlights the insanely wicked path that Butcher has decided to follow. There's no sort of forgiveness, no sort of understanding that his father is human, only the blind need for revenge. Payback for what he put Lenny and him through as they were children, especially Lenny, even if he knows that it won't necessarily make him feel better, as his father also explicitly states in this scene. I mean, nothing will at this point, really, not even killing Homelander himself. Of course, he does come back to the others and join the main cast so that they'll help him free those that he does have a little bit of care left for, but he's much more of an asshole now than he ever was, I feel like. He barrels ahead with what he wants to do and doesn't even really bother consulting the rest because they're not really a team anymore. Butcher is no longer a friend, he's more of a begrudged ally for most of them, an aspect of this conflict that they simply can't ignore if they want to move forward. And I think this most recent episode really characterized that well, with everyone being aggressively angry at each other. A lot of that hate was directed at Butcher, and it came from pretty much every part of the group besides Frenchie. It was really interesting to see how they felt about him, and honestly, very good to hear that they were still so frustrated and done with him as a person, especially Huey after all this time, because that turn in season 4 was a big step away from them in general, and if they kind of went back on that and made everyone friends again, it kind of would have been cheap, but they really committed to it, which I appreciate. And this new Butcher is especially evident when we see him interact with Ryan. There's no longer that fatherly aspect to him that wants to keep him alive, that wants to honor that promise he made to Becca as she passed. He only wants to really use Ryan to be able to take Homelander down, even drafting him into a suicide plan with the virus to make sure that they succeed. He is directly willing to get Ryan killed, the complete opposite of his actions at the end of the 3rd season that showed his humanity and really kickstarted that conflict within him between him and Kessler, as he had resolved to work with Soldier Boy, a kind of terrible person, just to take down Homelander, whatever the cost, but when the cost is Ryan, he really can't go through with it. And yes, Soldier Boy was going to kill Ryan. He actually directly said that when he came back this season.
And you sold me out. Put me back in a fucking box. And for what? Because I was gonna kill some dumb kid?
That kid is your grandson.
However, there is still a little flicker of the old Butcher in there, as when they discover the virus doesn't work on soups like Soldier Boy, he retreats, knowing that fighting Homelander with just the 2 of them is just asking to be killed for nothing, without achieving that revenge. And he even goes to help Ryan back up and save him after Homelander really beats him to a pulp. It's interesting how they're still vaguely treading this line. They're really keeping me guessing at whether Butcher will succumb succumb to this tumor and sacrifice himself, trying to actually do the right thing, or go out fighting Homelander in his bid for revenge. It's kind of a toss-up, and they're doing a really fantastic job moving forward from this extremely dark and violent place that Butcher decided to end season 4 in. It is really hard to write a character after they make a huge decision like that. Like, that's usually a end of series in the future, this is now how I will act decision, but they are honestly nailing the progression of it, and I'm really eager to see where it goes next. The next character I'd like to discuss is Annie January. Annie's development, as I have said before on this channel, is one of my favorites of any character on this show, and one of the best parts of that is the similarities to Butcher that are shown, and are firmly established more in the second season, but have grown more and more apparent as the show has gone on. In season 4, Firecracker helped reveal a more cutthroat side to Annie that has always existed, even when she was this small town girl with stars in her eyes that we met at the beginning of the show, who believed her power was a gift from God, and that she was destined to do good in the world. She's got a real fire in her, a burning sense of justice. Her wanting to be a real hero, someone who genuinely fights for good, hasn't changed. But what has changed is what she's willing to do to get there. Season 4 largely dealt with Annie's struggle to accept this other part of herself, and that is why her powers were on the fritz for such a long time. After she proved what Firecracker had said about her by beating her ass on live television, she's really shaken, and her denial of this part of herself as true prevents her from being able to access her power at all. But at the end of the season, backed into a corner, she finally lets loose and accepts what she needs to be to keep the role of morality in America alive and well. So in this year that we've been away, Annie has clearly compromised many different parts of herself. She's given up a lot of what she really wished and believed she'd be able to hold on to. Her optimism, her drive to go through the proper channels, to do things right. But this dire situation has proven that she can't attain anything she wants, any of that important change, if she plays it safe. Honestly, I think she's really representative of what a lot of young leftists in this country are going through right now in these really, like, difficult and confusing times where all of us were raised to generally believe that the system in America works and has its checks and balances, and if we just do things the right way, vote for who we believe in, the politicians will protect our human rights, and we won't ever get to authoritarianism. But when somebody has bypassed a lot of these restrictions to prevent us from having, you know, unilateral leaders or kings, and ignores those checks and balances, and nobody does anything, people are going to have to take things into their own hands. Why do you think so many people are out there protesting? Why do you think the No Kings movement has so much momentum, more momentum than ever, that young people are getting out there and standing up against what the leader of our country is actually trying to get us to believe in? It's the same reason Annie can't rely on the government to help her in this show, because the politicians are bought and owned, and nobody will stand up to anyone to keep the status quo in place and to make sure that the people who already hold the most wealth in this country, in the world, honestly, keep it there and restrict it from the rest of the population, the people who are actually working hard. And this determination and resilience that she has allows her to be a bit more level-headed during conflicts. As cold as it was, I loved Annie moving to get Frenchie out of the camp first, as she agreed with Butcher, causing Huey's friend Kay to be killed, unfortunately, and Huey to nearly die if A-Train didn't show up. It's not her fault. I mean, she was just following the plan. Of course, she would have gone back and saved Huey immediately, but her ability to make the calculated decision rather than the emotional one is definitely a new side to Annie that was fermenting all throughout season 4, so it's enjoyable to see it play out here in such a grounded and exciting way. And we see this too with her advocating to actually use the virus, even if it kills all supes, as a risk, using the utilitarian argument of 10,000 super people to save 8 billion regular people. And what I really loved was how they conveyed how ashamed she was about all of this. with Huey. She really can't talk to him about what she's done, trying to distract him and herself with empty sex and keeping her head so far in the game that she doesn't have a second to process what she's been doing. Like I said, she never really wanted to be this person, and just because she's willing to become the archetype doesn't mean she's proud of it. She may agree with Butcher, but she still doesn't like Butcher, if that makes sense. And thus, there's a large part of her that doesn't like herself, even if she has now accepted that it is a part of her persona since that dilemma with her powers last season. She even feels the need to leave Huey behind, finding everything easier to handle on her own, abandoning him and flying off into the sky to take care of that difficult work she doesn't want Huey to watch her doing. What's really great about this season, though, is how they're moving this arc forward. They're not having her remain stagnant. I, of course, adored when she was able to reconnect with her estranged father in the most recent episode. This is a conflict that has been left open since the first season, and Annie earnestly pleading with him to accept her as his daughter is so compelling. She was ashamed of who she was after believing that she was a gift from God for so many years thanks to her mother's lies, and his being able to still see her as his own daughter and reveal that it was never due to anything she did, that it wasn't her that he couldn't love, helps her to feel like less of some sort of monster, someone who can't be around those who she loves, and thus is able to return to Huey. Such a great way to get her to come back, and a huge moment for Annie's arc. I can't wait to see where they take it in the future, and I'm so glad that she is back with the boys, and hopefully her and Huey can work through some of the difficult feelings that they have for one another after their year apart, where Huey was in the camp and Starlight was off, perhaps doing things that she wasn't proud of. Next up is Kimiko. Kimiko being able to involve herself more in general conversation and contribute is a really welcome change, though it was definitely jarring to hear her speak at first, because also I still know her as Glimmer from She-Ra. I do think that Karen Fukuhara is a strong enough actress to be able to make this transition feel natural. She was pretty damn raunchy before she actually spoke the words out loud too. I mean, I'm thinking about what she said to Stormfront first.
She says the truth is, she's gonna stick her boot up your nutsy kitty.
And her delivery of these lines is very upbeat and lively, a great deal of new fun bits to chew on for the audience. They also do a fantastic job of showing how she's grown as a person, opening up more of herself to Frenchie and really fully committing to a relationship with him. She's showing many more aspects of herself after her amazing leap forward in the season 4 finale, when she was actually able to confess her feelings for Frenchie in the first place and accept the fact that he loved her. And it's so wonderful to watch her blossom and become more comfortable with herself. I really enjoyed in the most recent episode especially, as her anger grew and grew, her voice began to recede as well. And part of what her anger stemmed from was her fear of not being heard in the first place. I'm intrigued that she and Frenchie seemingly split up after this, as she makes a step toward the least amount of chaos away from that rage that kind of affects her progress. I am not fully convinced that they won't end up together at the end of the series, but I do respect Kimiko still working on herself and recognizing how she needs to protect what she has put so much effort into building. It's so moving when she says that she has spent so much time finding her voice. And yes, I get that people don't love how she speaks, but hey, she learned through TikTok, it kind of makes sense. But I enjoyed how they touched on the fact that that rage inside of her that stems from her time with the Shining Light Liberation Army and the shame that wells up inside of her when she does engage in that sort of chaos, that violence, is really her biggest emotional hurdle, and something that she needs to figure out on her own before she can be in a relationship with someone who, let's face it, isn't the most stable person on Earth. I do really like, even though we didn't really touch on it much, like verbally, how they show that she was kind of taking care of a family while she was away for this year in hiding, and kind of enjoying her time supporting and caring for other people as she did with her brother when they grew up. That was the only part of her that she feels was positive, that moved further away from that rage that they taught her in those fighting rings. Homelander, unsurprisingly, has been really great this season as well. One of the best parts about coming back to every season of this show is seeing how badly Homelander is now losing it, as it gets progressively and evidently worse as the series marches on, and season 5, so far, has really not disappointed. Without Ryan in his life, Homelander is utterly lost and alone, even though Sage is still on his side, and they are technically winning, he's never satisfied. In fact, he's only grown more erratic. When the Flight 37 video is released, he damn near lasers the entire crowd in an instant. He is that close to actually just massacring every single regular human on the planet. All it takes is just one prick to his ego as he realizes that everyone around him fears him. They don't love him. And while Sage is able to calm him down with her clever deflections, he is still in the most precarious position we've seen him in thus far. And when Ryan confronts him and rejects him finally and completely, he abandons another major aspect of his own humanity, beating his son basically to death. Likely, he would have died if Butcher didn't show up. They're just pushing him further and further to that edge, and it's seriously stressing me the fuck out. Sage's smear campaign and ability to silence dissenters with these camps is not only helping them to further their agenda, but it's also really to keep Homelander relatively stable. It's why they ramp up to include anyone who ever posted anything negative online about him as those eligible for the camps. If he continually sees this negative press, this growing hatred for him, the world might literally end. I mean, it seems like Sage is even plotting to kill him using Soldier Boy, given how just viscerally unstable he is at this point. That hallucination of Angel Stillwell telling him that he's a god was insane. Like, he has become downright delusional right before our very eyes, and as much as they've played up his fraying sanity for quite a while, 4 seasons, this time it feels a little bit more momentous than before. He's beginning to seriously lose any aspect of his human persona that is left and fracture his mind into pieces. Possibly then just killing the entire world. And it's not going to take much longer either. And as Butcher said in the most recent episode, as much as he tries to make himself, force himself to be not human, remove that part from his psyche, delude his brain into convincing every aspect of his persona that he is in fact a god in the flesh, it won't satisfy him. It will never satisfy him, and he will feel just as empty and likely even more alone than ever now that no one can identify with him at all. Even Firecracker, who was an actual believer in Homelander, is now lying through her teeth for her own safety. She doesn't believe or love him. She's afraid, and Homelander will always be keenly aware of that, even if the non-believers are all eliminated and he does live forever. His face at the end of the most recent episode was amazing, just completely devoid of any light or satisfaction, empty and utterly unfulfilled. I adore Anthony Starr's performance more than ever. He is so great at playing this extremely erratic man who is trying desperately to convince himself and the rest of the world that he is a god that can't be hurt when he in fact is just a hurt little boy. I mean, if it wasn't enough, his own father is also back around, Soldier Boy, but instead of accepting him after Butcher's betrayal, he doubles down on his disappointment in who Homelander is as a man. I love how consistent Soldier Boy is here, too. It's like he hasn't left a single day. He is still that same person, that little boy who never got the attention he needed from his father and is perpetuating the cycle on his own son because he can't stand what he sees of himself in Homelander. He may be powerful, but Soldier Boy is still so fucking weak, and his petty feud with his own son this season proves that. He can't bear to even look at him, this person who needs his father's attention, just as he yearns so hard for his own. He reminds him of the person he was before he took the V, the person who Soldier Boy, this new persona, replaced. And Homelander even directly put that to words in the most recent episode. I love how right they both are about the other one, pointing out each other's flaws and insecurities with pretty good perspective because they're dealing with the same thing themselves. And they're just completely unwilling to recognize and accept that they might be that, in their eyes, weak person. Oh, how dare I feel? Great writing between these two, as always. And the last character I'd like to discuss is A-Train. Technically, this was the end of his arc, but damn if they didn't nail his final episode. I loved him avoiding a civilian and it ending up leading to his demise because, while obviously terribly tragic, it shows a level of selflessness and compassion that he has rarely shown before recently, and that he began his arc directly avoiding. He was extremely selfish, opportunistic, and often rather callous, even bragging in a club after murdering Huey's girlfriend Robin in the exact same way. Except then, he didn't care enough to avoid her. And he was also on drugs, because he didn't really care about a lot of things. But over time, we really see a shift in his perspective, as his capacity for what his conscience is able to justify in his own mind is kind of reached, especially when the callous soup world ends up brutally affecting his own brother, permanently disabling him. And when he kills the soup that did it, his brother only grows more afraid of how willing he is to use his power for extreme violence, as if that's all he knows, and it doesn't really faze him. That's not what his brother wants from his own family, from the boy that he basically raised, and for the person that could be in his son's lives, if he allowed it. And it's this that really shakes A-Train to his core. For the person that he always looked up to, that always took care of him, to completely turn away from him, utterly disappointed in the man that he has become, it is just completely heartbreaking for him, and causes him to feel the need to actually change his ways, which is why in the 4th season, he really grows a distaste for the entire culture at Vought, helping Homelander in the first few episodes a bit, but then slowly moving to basically become a double agent, saving the boys numerous times throughout the season, like with Huey at Vought on Ice. He really shows remorse for everything that he had done to his family, for how his brother looks at him, and works tirelessly to be better, putting himself in immense danger, and eventually leaving Vought entirely, hiding his family, keeping them safe, allowing them to be who they are, and still be free. He even tries to take Ashley, who he knows is just a regular person, petrified to rebel herself, even though she takes a, let's just say, different path. So while it was utterly tragic to see him go, it was also a completely satisfying end. His brother forgave him, thanked him for keeping his family safe, recognized the person that he was now becoming, how he was actually that man that he worked so hard to raise as a child. And with Homelander, he got the last laugh. He got to show Homelander that he isn't afraid of him, that he is stronger than he ever will be, regardless of what compound V he gets into his veins. Braver and more of a hero than Homelander could ever hope to become. And he sees exactly through that costume that he wears to the lonely, pathetic boy underneath. Another thing I've really liked about this season is the lightning quick pacing. Beginning with the Flight 37 video being released was an ingenious way to kick things off. I enjoy that the past seasons, they've started to choose to begin in the middle of an operation, like as it's actively going, to really get things moving with regard to the momentum. Our heroes are all spread out, separated, already making their own progress and fighting for an actual war. We get updates on Marie Moreau and how the Gen V characters are working in their own sector, and we begin with a deadline on some of our favorite characters' lives. Really truly an insane way to begin this season and bring the cast remotely in the same place again. It was fantastic that we were able to free Huey, MM, and Frenchie so quickly so that the plot can march forward with all the characters involved and everybody gets to have an arc, but I appreciate how difficult it was, and that they weren't freed before the season began. That would have been a rather poor choice and kind of undermined season 4's really amazing twist ending. But there are real consequences for the ending of the last season, and there are also legitimate reasons why they haven't gone to the camps in this time skip sooner. It's appropriately insanely difficult, and you need a lot of unique manpower, like this weird mole dude, to be able to formulate a coherent and at least semi-smart plan that won't get everyone killed. And still, they needed the last-minute save from A-Train, or Huey would have been obliterated. And afterwards, we get right to work with the virus, trying to test it to make it strong enough to take down Homelander. And they even get to test it out on the one and only Soldier Boy, with Homelander also wasting no time in taking him out of his indefinite slumber. The plot is just racing forward, and so many threads from the past are coming together more swiftly than I anticipated. With Homelander quickly using Soldier Boy to test the virus, and Soldier Boy trying to kill Homelander in return, Ryan and Zoe coming back, and Zoe finding her dad and escaping with him. Like, there's so much going on, I adore it. Everything is coming back from the previous seasons. But despite all of these returning threads, there's also a great deal of new lore, and new lively opponents, specifically with the Teenage Kicks. They do a great job of both balancing what's previously been established and working on newer plot threads to keep things interesting and allow for some more mystery, even after so much has already been revealed. For example, with the V1 plotline. Though we have known about this potential older, more primitive Compound V since Stormfront was introduced, it's so amazing to see it developed into an active plot point, with Homelander aching for immortality and godlyhood, Soldier Boy desperately trying to stop his own son from surpassing him, and the boys clamoring to work with the virus and come up with any plan to kill Homelander before he can reach that super serum. It's a rather exciting and climactic plot as well, with ramifications that, of course, will end the main threads that we have been following. And I believe it's quite cool that many of the concepts involved in it were introduced long before this season itself. Plus, it gives us more context on the earlier history of Vought as a company, which I always found super fascinating. I loved when we dove into that in season 2, with Soldier Boy even coming back to the place where he was first tested, where V was born and injected in those original trials, and honestly, where all this hatred was born. Loved how they turned that into kind of that one guy's power of the building, just amplifying hatred. This is where it all stems from. Loved how they were able to add a personal conflict for Soldier Boy even after all this time and remind him of his humanity so brutally with this rival who told him he was nothing, and while many others that he's already knew have been killed, usually by him. It gives him that much more depth and shows how much of him was driven by that need to prove his own manliness, prove how much of a strong, indispensable soldier he was, because his father always put him down, made him feel weak, less than, and so did this guy, saying that he had never really served, saying that he was nothing. But his power is a way for him to be able to stand above all these other men. But in this episode, when Soldier Boy is reminded of his humble and perhaps, as he sees it, shameful beginnings, he kind of loses all of that confidence, even asking Homelander to end him, which is just a great moment for his character. It says so much about him. Another thing that this season has been really killing are the fight scenes that have really crucial, pivotal moments in them. Watching Annie pop off several times these past few episodes and consistently use her power to fly and destroy others more efficiently than she ever has is kind of really important, as many in the fanbase consider her to be pretty weak, but her moment at the very end of season 4 was a watershed step forward for her power development, and they illustrate that well in this opening arc, having her display a level of control that we've never really seen from her, as she was learning all throughout season 4 how to utilize this newfound strength that she actually didn't even know she had. The fight between Homelander and A-Train as well is gorgeous. It's kind of funny how Kripke warned us not to expect huge fights, as if he was like scared because there isn't some all-out war scene with like a dozen soups fighting each other at one time. But this was one of the most intense fight scenes we've had thus far. Such a raw display of Homelander's terrifying power that we rarely get to see, as he's often in confined spaces, more strategically using his laser eyes, rather than Superman flying through the woods like a madman. I love how this scene also portrays that despite the fact that Homelander can fly as fast as A-Train can run, A-Train still has that super fast perception of the world around him, like he doesn't see things as moving that quickly, so Homelander continually misses and has to catch him, wait for A-Train to mess up himself. A very great way to have these powers fend off against each other, and just any way you slice it, a really fun superhero battle. I also really appreciated the infighting in the most recent episode as well. While I of course didn't love watching our friends turn on each other and try to shoot each other, it did really reveal some interesting points of conflict and relationship developments that I hadn't really picked up on that much before. Specifically, I love how much it reveals Butcher is acting as a sort of devil on MM's shoulder, where before the camps, Marvin was much more keen on doing things the opposite of Butcher's way, the right way, as he would say. Now he's more often siding with Butcher. He was really viscerally affected by that time in the camps and lost a lot of his hope They had shown that a little bit in the previous episodes, but while this one still does show that he hates Butcher himself, Butcher is pushing him further toward the edge, egging him toward his revenge against Soldier Boy, his darker impulses, convincing him to kill all other Supes. It's a much less positive place than MM has really ever been in before in this show, and they do a really good job, especially in this most recent episode, highlighting how precarious it is for him. I mean, we've still seen that his heart is there with the Countess of Crows. He still wants to believe the best in others, but ultimately, he is walking down Butcher's path, following in his shoes, and honestly, I fear what it means for his safety. And lastly, they are doing a wonderful job not shying away from some really dark and malicious portrayals of current American culture and being really obvious and upfront about it. Having someone rip another person away from their children as they record a mobile ad is a really fantastic dystopian twist on current issues, where we do actually have thugs decked out with guns, bulletproof vests, and masks to protect their identities in America, disregarding people's basic human rights and forcing them away from their families to send them back to facilities that aren't humane in the slightest, and then losing track of many of them once they get there. All defended by robots online anytime you try to criticize it. Again, the most recent episode did a really great job of highlighting this with Annie's father, illustrating the extremely personal and down-to-earth effects on regular neighborhoods. How all this propaganda and extensive marginalization causes this man to be afraid to even take any sort of stand and rise up for his friends, people he cares about, even if he does agree with Annie. And his own son, Annie's brother, thanks to the thousands of ads that these Supes work so hard to churn out to sway public opinion and get people to turn a blind eye to these utter monstrosities, has been completely brainwashed to believe anyone labeled a Starlighter, just as they use the term illegal in real life, is an automatically horrible, disgusting, sick criminal that deserves to be disappeared. It's disgusting. Disgusting how the people who push these messages try to get those who don't have the wealth and power that they do to turn on one another, all to distract from how horrifyingly awful they are and how badly they misuse the majority of the world's funds. It's great commentary about the current state of our political system any way you slice it. I mean, people will deny it, but I mean, hey, it's just literally what's happening. It's really obvious and one-to-one, especially with the explicit usage of camps and the now disbanding of the American education system. But I honestly think it is really important how bold and outspoken this show is during these times, how utterly ridiculous it can get, and how this really intense satire shows what the ideologies our current government is putting in place, and honestly what our country has been leaning toward for a long, long time. Thank you, Reagan, actually do when taken to their most extreme points. And a lot of people who watch this show, let's face it, brutally miss the point of all this. So it's really necessary for it to be so willing to be loud about every injustice that is currently happening and fictionalize it so clearly, to be willing to piss people off or at least wake a few people up, criticizing the hypocrisy and utter danger of these conservative beliefs. I'm genuinely afraid for America, y'all, but this show helps me feel less alone, which at the end of the day is a great thing. A positive influence. But overall, we are halfway through this season, and not a single episode has been a miss for me. Everyone, even smaller characters like Victoria Newman's daughter or Translucent's son, is coming back into the fold and participating in the main plotline as it hurtles quickly out of control. And while they still leave themselves time for heartfelt character moments and crucial exchanges between our protagonists and even our antagonists, they're still able to pack so much excitement, so much content, and so many wonderful ideas into each new episode. It's just one of the most creative shows on television. I can't wait to see the final 4. I betcha they're gonna be amazing. But hey, if you enjoyed, consider going to patreon.com/PosiTVty, that's PosiTVty, and contributing to help this channel. There you get all of these videos before they come out on YouTube. You can choose what you want to see, and you can help me edit them so that they're better before I release them. Plus, you can hear some comments that maybe I decide to cut out before I release it to the wider audience. Plus, it's a great way for you to involve yourself in the community. It's a really positive bunch over there. We just talk about how much we love television, and that's pretty much it. So if you want to go there and support us, you can, but the support on YouTube means a lot as well. Thank you for being here. And remember that you are not alone. All right? I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.